Alright, hello, my name is Osborne, and this is my submission for Gunbrella any percent to AGDQ2024, specifically for the second submission period. This game came out in September of this year, so it does meet the current deadlines and qualifications for the second submission period. And before we get into the run, I just want to mention that there's timestamps in the description for interesting moments for the run. If you want to you see exactly all the really cool parts and all the really cool commentary that I'm going to be giving for the really cool strats in this game, because it's a lot of really eye-catching stuff, and I think it's really enjoyable both for runners and for audiences alike. So without further ado, we're just going to get straight into the run, and I'll explain it because I explain it as we're starting because we do have a small cutscene that we need to watch as we start the game. We start on a new file, and timing begins once we select the difficulty right now. So Gunbrella is a sort of like noir style action adventure game where you're playing as this character named Murray, and you're on this adventure in this opening cutscene where you're just trying to grab something for your family back home, pick some fruit, and in this opening cutscene, you see your house is on fire in the background, and when you go to investigate it, you realize that your child has been kidnapped and your wife has been killed. And so this entire story is sort of a John Wick situation where you're trying to, find vengeance and try to find your daughter back. And the only weapon that was left at the crime scene was the aforementioned Gunbrella. And that was the weapon that was used to kill your wife, and so that's the only thing you have when it comes to clues as to where the antagonist is. And so that's the main setting behind this game. But to start off, I just want to mention how this game has really cool movement tech, and how there's a lot of really cool glitches and skips that the community has found in a really small amount of time. And not only that, but even the parts where there aren't huge glitches or skips, there's incredible movement, incredible combat, and there's a lot that goes into the run in terms of preserving your health, preserving the money that you're using throughout the run, making sure that you're not being reckless or careless in any single way just for the sake of speed. You also need to make sure that you're being careful, especially because in this run we don't use a lot of saves when you're going through a PB, but of course in a marathon you can do a lot of safety saves if you'd like, which is really helpful for this submission. It's a run that's incredibly interesting from a runner perspective, and I'm thinking that it's going to be great for audiences as well. So right off the bat, you can see that when I'm talking to anyone, I actually am spamming through dialogue really fast, and that's because I'm playing on keyboard and mouse. On controller, you only have one button to spam through text. On keyboard and mouse, you have two: the left mouse button and the E button. And so you can just spam those two, and it allows for spamming through text to be a lot faster on keyboard and mouse. And the second thing you're going to notice immediately is the movement style. We kind of compare it a lot to wave dashing in Celeste, even though they're fundamentally a bit different, but it's the closest comparison that we have. Essentially, you're just pointing your Gunbrella down using right click to shoot out your umbrella, and that allows you to dash forward. You essentially dash in any direction that your mouse is pointing, which you use your umbrella part of the Gunbrella. And so we use that repeatedly. Every time you touch the floor, you can jump and it'll reload your dash. And so we can constantly spam that to get as much speed as we possibly can throughout the run. So in this first section, you're going to see us go through the sewer section because we need to go and out of our way to get 3 rats for an old lady that'll give us a train pass over to the next area that we need to go to. In this first section, we're introduced to the beginner enemies known as gorehounds, and they do drop specific items. They can drop eyeballs, or they can drop gorehound pelts, and those are interesting things that we need and are really useful because those are allow us to sell for money that we need to buy for specific weapons and upgrades later. So those are always things we need to keep out for. And so we're going to go through here, and this is a really good example of just how fast it is spamming through text in case the first in case the first example wasn't like clear enough. But not only that, but you also really have to pay attention because it's so easy for your like mind to just like go on autopilot and spam through text, because you need to choose specific dialogue options as well. So while it is really fun to spam through, you do need to pay attention. And so after that, we're going to give the rats to this old lady, and she will give us the train pass over to Outer King Station that we're going to go to right now. And so that's the first section of this game done already. Now we're going to the next session. We're going to be introduced to more enemies that actually have guns themselves, enemies that will be able to do a lot more damage than the Gorehounds will. And you can see every time that we use a train, our health is back. Our health is back to normal. We're going to reflect bullets. You can also reflect bullets, any kind of ammo that is shot at you. You can reflect with your umbrella, part of the umbrella. So we're going to go up here, and we're going to kill a few of these cult members. That's what they're referred to as. There's different types of cult members. These ones specifically are just the shooters. They have a pretty standard type gun that they're going to shoot at you during combat. And they can shoot pretty far. So they're typically people you want to get rid of pretty quickly whenever you can. Although a balancing act in this run is, of course, killing enemies takes time. You don't want to waste a lot of time, but you do need to try and just be really careful and make sure that you're not wasteful with your health or anything like that. Plus, the enemies can drop really cool things, such as different ammos or different amounts of money as well, that'll allow us to upgrade some stuff later and buy certain weapons that we'll need. And so right here, we're already going through the Outer King Station. We're going to go through this section where we're going to kill a few more enemies, and hopefully they drop really good spoils for us. In this run, it was kind of iffy on the spoils, but now we're back at Orwell Town, and we're going to go immediately talk to the guard over here. As you can see, Orwell Town is in a bit of a iffy state right now because their mayor has been kidnapped, and we're going to go save their mayor in order to get to Allendale, which is an area after this. This is an interesting part because Bill's Pills is the area that we're going to go to. We're going to talk to Bill, and he's going to give us a code that'll lead us over to the sewers of Orwell. And the code actually changes every single time that you play the game, so you can't just like spam through that text all the time. You do have to really be careful and make sure that you're paying attention. So we're going to enter the code here, and we're going to go straight into the sewers. And so that's pretty fast entry into the sewers, 6 minutes and 36 seconds in. And we're going to be dealing with more gorehounds here, and we're going to sometimes go out of our way to kill these gorehounds, but mainly a lot of our money is going to be coming from these boxes over here already. You can kill that one because it's really easy to do it because it's already in your way, as well as this one right here. Thankfully, that first one dropped a gorehound pelt, and we're going to kill these 3 enemies up on our way up to this tower. And through the sewers, we're going to see Seward over here, and unfortunately in the we don't see him at any percent, but if you were to do the all hearts run, we could see Seward as well if you wanted to go through that specific section as well. And so now we're going to go up here, and we're going to try and go into the Cult 45 hideout after a small cutscene. This might be a good time for donations as well, where you can see that there are different other cult members right here, the Sorcerers, and the Sorcerers are enemies that we're going to have to actually battle later. We don't have to deal with right now because we still need to get into the Cult 45 hideout. But we're going to try and get in there because we follow the Sorcerers, and the unfortunate reality is that they're going to draw up the bridge before we can get, even though we have time right there to like just move, but it's comedic effect, so it builds nicely. We're going to talk over here to the merchant because the merchant is going to give us a key that allows us to get to a secret entrance into the Cult 45 hideout in the sewers. So right off the bat, we're already going pretty quickly through these opening sections of the game, and once we get past Orwell and the Cult 45 hideout, that's when it gets really ramped up into high gear. with a lot of the really cool glitches that we see throughout the run. But even in this movement and this simple combat that we've seen so far, it's been pretty intriguing. And so right there, we're going to collect a bandage for safekeeping. Hopefully we can sell that later if we don't need to use it. And we're going to go out of our way to grab a little chest that has 25 coins in it, mainly because we haven't been getting that many good spoils from enemies lately. So we want to make sure that we have all backups necessary. And now we're going to go into the Cult 45 hideout, and this is the secret entrance. And you saw we were able to we almost interacted with another enemy, a fish there. They do drop fish scales, and those go for a pretty hefty price, but we don't really use them in the run, or at least not in any percent. We don't inherently need them. Okay, so now we're going to Orwell. We're going to skip using the bed. Some people like to do it for safekeeping, but in this run we're typically reserved for the benches because sleeping in beds takes a lot longer than like saving at a bench. Here is the mayor. He gave us a key that he stole from a guard that we're going to use to get his key to unlock his cell. We're going to use the bandage just to be safe because there's a sorcerer in this room and they're typically pretty dangerous enemies. And the next save point is pretty far away from here. So we're going to go past here, kill those two enemies, be very quick and swift about it, skip this bench, and we're going to open up this bookshelf to move forward. And in these next rooms, we're going to have a similar puzzles like that. Just kill the sorcerer and move on. And we also want to kill this Gorehound pelt, or Gorehound for a Gorehound pelt, hopefully. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But in this room, there's a secret code. It's the same every single time. It's rat, and then rat, and then cat, and then crow. That's the exact order that you need to put them in. And so that's how we pulled all the bookshelves and opened up the secret bookcase that allows us to move forward. So as you can see, on the right side of the screen over there was Goldenrod. She's another woman that we're supposed to be saving if you had interacted with Scarlet earlier in the game. But just keep her in mind because definitely nothing bad is going to happen to her later. We're going to kill some more enemies over here in the sewers. And right over here, we're actually almost done with the sewer bit of the Cult 45 hideout. We're going around here because we need to open the drawbridge that leads us to the final boss room of this particular dungeon per se. So anytime you hear that really high tempo music, that's like enemy music means you can't leave the room until all the enemies are completely killed. And so we're going to be seeing a lot of that throughout the run. And it's sometimes a bit nerve-wracking to deal with during runs because you want to be able to deal with all the enemies as quickly as possible, and typically in those rooms are pretty high likelihood of you getting hit unless you're really careful about it. So we're going to grab one grenade here, as you saw before we killed that enemy that was in our way. And the reason we're going to grab that grenade is because it'll do more of a damage boost on the boss of this particular level. So we're going to save here just to be safe because we don't have another bandage. And so we want a full health going into the boss. So there's two sorcerers trying to get a blood sacrifice because of course this game has cults and blood sacrifices. What did you expect? We're going to ask about the mayor, and then we're going to ask for the gel keys. We're going to steal the gel keys, but of course we can't leave without killing the boss. We're going to kill these two sorcerers, and then that is when the boss will appear. So you can see we have a lot of rifles, and rifle rounds, and we have a grenade. Those are pretty useful throughout the run. So this boss is a demon, and it is called BAYBEE. And so we're going to shoot one grenade, and then we're going to use our remaining rifles to get a lot of damage out on BAYBEE, because the rifles do significantly more damage than your regular shotgun. As you can see, we're almost over halfway down, and unfortunately, a lot of the rifle rounds that you use are typically a result of enemies dropping them if you're really lucky. But after that, the remaining shots after using any rifle rounds that you picked up, you just use with the shotguns, and immediately in under a minute, BAYBEE is dead, gone. So now we just have to escape the cult hideout, and before we do that, we have to, of course, let Goldenrod out of her cell. Nothing bad is going to happen to her, except of course something bad is going to happen to her because the game can't let you have a single moment of peace. Okay, So after that, the entire Cult 45 hideout is ridden with Wraiths. These Wraiths are not enemies that we have to deal with in any percent because you can't kill them in any percent. However, if you upgrade to all hearts, or if you want to go with that category instead, we do actually have a way of killing them because we do have a side quest that allows us to kill them. But instead, here in any percent, we just have to go straight past them. We do sometimes shoot them if they're like in our way or we feel like we're going to take damage from them, and so sometimes they can be a bit difficult to work with. All right, so now we're going to free the mayor, and then we're just going to go straight out because that's pretty much the end of Cult 45 hideout. We're just going to go straight ahead, and we're going to watch a small cutscene before moving on to Allendale. And Allendale is a particularly important but short part of the run, namely because in Allendale we're going to be buying a lot of a specific type of weapon that allow us to skip pretty much the majority of the game in different areas. So first, we're just going to go through this cutscene. Now is also a pretty good time for donations. And so we're just going to ask the train man over here, manning the train station, to bring us over to Allendale. Ride on the train. And then move on. So, again, after a small cutscene here in Allendale, we're going to go to another Bill's Pills. And we're going to buy a weapon known as the Sawblades. Now, the Sawblades in this game are particularly broken, and we're going to see that as soon as we move on to the next area after Allendale. But after this first cutscene, we're just going to have this move on, and we're going to sell all of the spoils that we got from Under King Station and Orwell and Cult 45 hideout, and we're going to sell all that so we can really fill up on Sawblades. There is a maximum amount of Sawblades you can have. It's 49 specifically, and so we're just going to sell everything that we have, and we're going to sell, except for one bandage just for safekeeping, and we're going to buy all the Sawblades. We can't carry any more Sawblades. We pretty much maxed out the exact amount we need, and we have the exact amount of money that we needed, which is great. And so moving on, we're going to move on to the base camp. And the base camp is the next area before Mount Sajecka. So, now how exactly are the Sawblades broken? The Sawblades are going to allow us to perform a very specific skip right here, because every time they use a Sawblade, the character gets pushed back. And every time that happens, there's no cap on the backwards speed that the character can use, known as the backwards long jump effect, as I like to call it. And so we can make use of that by going up to this corner and essentially using the Sawblades by consistently pushing ourselves backwards so that it forces us to like move on to the next screen. And the screen to the right here is Mount Sajecka. Which is the next area. And if you have no idea like just how much that really skipped, it essentially skipped 2 full bosses and like 30 minutes of gameplay in Allendale. That's a lot of like cutscenes you have to skip through, a lot of enemies and boss fights that you have to do. It's a lot of fun. It's a very fun glitch, or a very fun skip, and we're going to be using stuff like that throughout the entire run, because you saw that we only used around 20 Sawblades, and so we're going to be using more of them for later. Okay, so right here, now we have to deal with Mount Sajecka, and we get to introduce these new enemies. What kind of birds are these? These birds right here, the vultures. Sorry, the vultures. We're gonna have to deal with the vultures, and they are particularly annoying enemies to deal with because their movement style is a little unpredictable, and so we don't really like need to deal with them a lot of times, but they can be a bit of a problem to deal with. And so now, after this cutscene, after we see that parents have traumatized their children by making him watch nature, just animals killing each other, we're going to move on to the second half of Mount Sajecka. While this is a very small portion of the run, it's a very dangerous portion of the run. Mount Sajecka is a part of the run where a lot of damage can be dealt towards you and towards other enemies as well. And so you want to be very careful, especially because in sections such as these, you can easily like fall or void out and then lose another heart. And so we're going to do our best when we angle our like dashes downwards so we don't accidentally fall into pits. Beautiful. And now we're going to be forming another skip with the Sawblades known as Beast Skip. And not only can we like move on to other screens, but we can also clip through objects like that. Because again, there's just an infinite amount of backward speed that's being built up over and over again. And it'll just, you defy all physics when you have infinite speed. So, with that being said, that is all of the Sawblades that we're going to need for now. The rest of the Sawblade skips are going to be done in the latter half. We're almost done with the first half of the game. All the rest of the Sawblade skips are going to be used in the second half. Right now, a bit of a lore update. So we went towards Allendale, went through Allendale, went through Orwell, and we discovered a lot about the Gunbrella, and we discovered a lot about where this antagonist is. And this is our antagonist right here. His name is Max, and that is our child that he's carrying in his arms. And so we want, rightfully so, Murray is mad, and now we're stuck in this like really thin aspect ratio for a dramatic effect. And so the unfortunate part about this is that it's a pretty lengthy cutscene, but it is a good time for donations after we're done explaining all of like the lore and stuff, if folks are interested in that. And it's another part of the game where sometimes you really wish you had turbo, because you're just consistently spamming left click and also left click and the E button consistently to spam through all the text. It can get a bit tiring at times, but I feel like the cutscene and the spamming through text kind of balances out pretty well with all the interesting gameplay portions of the run. And so that's why I think it's like really good, because it allows time for donations, it allows time for just cooldown time for audiences and for the runners as well. And so I think that's really, really fun aspect of the run as well. And so now we're following Max into the mines, into the crude mines specifically. And spoiler alert, and a very unfortunate thing's about to happen, where we will get caught by Max and another police officer. But don't worry, like any police officers in this game will be dead by the end of the run. And so we're gonna be dashing downwards here, and that's pretty much it. We've like lost. We've lost control of the character because we do have the spam through text, but we've lost, like this is the final like gameplay portion of the first half of the run. Now we're just going to sit through another small cutscene, and now we can go into the latter half of the run that builds up to pretty much like a lot of boss battles and a lot of really cool glitches as well. But first, we're going to just sit here, and we are going to get arrested. And next we're gonna have a flashback with like our wonderful wife who we saw before she unfortunately was killed by the very own Max right here. And we got our Gunbrella taken away from us, which is an unfortunate thing. And so what's gonna happen next? Who knows? But yeah, that is the main meat and bones for the lore update right now. You can already see that this run has had a lot going for it, and it's only in the first half, and the second half is just going to have even more stuff going for it. So this is just an amazing run, and so it balances out pretty well, all things considered. This guy is just gonna put us to sleep, and we're gonna have a nice flashback sequence. Look at how lovely our wife is right here. If the screen will turn on, there we go. Look at how lovely our wife is right here. A beautiful cutscene. And one thing that you're gonna notice is that this is the only time that we're gonna be seeing our actually seeing what our wife looks like, and she's as beautiful as ever. And so you can see it really tugs on the heartstrings, this kind of thing. But thankfully we can still like move our mouse around, have a little fun during the downtime, if you're not sore from like spamming through so much text all the time. But this happens like just before the opening cutscene in the game, where we're sent out to go like get berries and stuff like that, and we get an unfortunate knock at the door, which is Max here to kill our wife and kidnap our child. So yeah, that is the main flashback, and now 3 years later, that is a full time jump between the first and second half of the game. The first thing that we're going to be doing is actually, as soon as we see the save icon, we're going to exit to main menu and then reload the file, because unfortunately this game is finicky with like the transitions between areas after you perform the skip into Mount Sajecka without doing any of Allendale. And so if you try to, sometimes it'll just stay on a black screen during a transition phase, instead of actually moving on with the game. And so to avoid that, we just quickly exit to main menu and go back in. And now we're here with 3 prisoners who are going to help us throughout this journey. And so these 3 prisoners, Eli and Hoag up top, and I believe Claire is her name right at the bottom right here. And so these are all pretty important characters, and that'll be pretty pivotal to the speedrun as well, both in any percent and in all hearts if you're interested in either category. And so we're just going to be spamming through some more text here, and we're going to be going right back into the gameplay. She somehow has dynamite in her jail cell. Don't ask me how she got that. I don't know. I don't know how she smuggled that. But after that, we are now in a state where we don't have our Gunbrella. We don't have our our clothes either. Like, we're just stuck in this like bare self where we're going to be jumping through just in our prison outfit, and that actually has pretty disastrous consequences, because not only can we not like engage in combat, but we can't use like the Gunbrella's fast movement system. And we also have to be very careful because, unfortunately, since we don't have climbing gear, we can't wall jump, which is probably one of the more detrimental parts of this particular side of the run. And so you need to be very careful. But it doesn't last for too long. Just in like a minute, we're going to get all of that stuff back. This section, while it is pretty quick, it is pretty difficult because you just have a lack of resources, and so you have to find different ways to adapt. And sometimes we purposefully take damage. Like, it's like impossible not to take damage right there, and so we just move on and go through with it. We're gonna bait these machines right here to make a little carving for us in the path, like so. But the particular pellets that they shoot are RNG, and so we're just gonna be bouncing through here, quickly going through there before that can explodes and damages us more. And now we should be good. That guy is going to just shoot a grenade at himself, but it helps us. And now we're here with Claire again, and we're going to be spamming through text. Claire gives you 2 options here, because she asks, hey, we're going to escape the mines, we should steal some crude, which is the mineral that has been going through that they're mining here while they've been imprisoned. And so we do steal the crude, mainly because crude sells for a lot of money once we get back out into the real world, and that'll allow us to buy more Sawblades for later. But now we have our climbing gear, which allows us to wall jump again, which is pretty important because we need to come up here, go up, and into the next area to allow us to get our Gunbrella back. So, that enemy will just get killed by the grenades. Again, another section where we purposely take damage. Usually you wouldn't want this much damage taken to you at this point. You want 2 hearts, not 1, but unfortunately we had another hit. The main reason that you don't want that to happen is because you do see that your character starts to limp if too much damage has been taken to them, and so but you can like counteract that by just jumping repeatedly. There's a little bit of a glitch there. If you spam through text, the gun shoots behind you before they enter the room, which it's fun. We're gonna save here because, again, we don't have any hearts, and having to redo all that isn't ideal. And so just for safety, we're gonna be saving right there. Typically in a run, if you have like a good amount of damage taken to you, want to be able to save or heal as fast as possible, so you don't have to like redo the whole section all over again, unless you're feeling really risky. In which case, be my guest. But right here, you can see that the mines are in a different state now because the tentacle monster that we saw at the beginning of the section has now awakened again. And so now we're going to go meet up with our friends, and we have our full range of movement again, which allows us to be pretty quick and adaptable. We're going to go back pretty much directly to where we were. right towards our jail cell, but then again go further. So we're going to pass through here. We're going to kill this Gorehound now, since we can. Or just sometimes the Gorehound takes two hits. And unfortunately, since we sold the crude, this first room is going to have a Wraith. The game makes you feel like this choice matters, but even if you don't steal the crude, the next few rooms will also have Wraiths in them. And so it's just really annoying sometimes to deal with. But as soon as you mine crude, that first room will have... that first room will have a Wraith in it, and we're gonna do some pretty interesting movement, especially with these claws that we're grabbing onto with the ropes. And so we can just swing upwards and gain just enough height to get to the one up there. And as we're navigating through this maze-like room, we're gonna be making sure that this Wraith doesn't attack us by shooting it a few times before it regenerates, and then just leaving as quickly as we can, dashing our way through those boxes. And now we're back here with Claire and Eli. And they're going to explain to us how, unfortunately, since they chose to mine the crude, Hoag is now dead. It's an unfortunate reality of the situation, but killing Hoag is faster. We do have to kill Hoag in order to get more money and to buy more Sawblades later. So unfortunate for Hoag, a win for us, but unfortunate loss for all the Hoag fans out there. But it's all right. It's for the greater good. So now that we are done here, we're going to go ahead and going through another really interesting section known as the minecart section. Now the minecart section is a wonderful section because you can very, very quickly dash through here. As you can see, the game like regenerates your dash a lot faster than they usually do. And so that's pretty prevalent here. Oh, wait, what happened to my camera? Come on. There we go. Perfect. All right. Now, they're going to the minecart section. You can just keep dashing through, but a interesting thing about the minecart section is you want to be very careful because since you're like constantly dashing through, the delay on your on shooting is like increased a little bit, and so you want to be very careful if you want to like stop dashing before you interact with an enemy. We're going to purposely die at the beginning of that section here because we have 1 heart, and you know there's a checkpoint at the beginning of every single room, and so we're going to be able to easily make our way through there without having to having to be very careful, or without having to deal too much about our health if we die immediately. So yeah, as you can see here, I'm like slowing down every time I want to shoot an enemy because against the delay between like using your umbrella and using your gun here is pretty finicky. And you, what I did for like exiting, for like shooting down and like killing myself, is a glitch, and you only want to do it if you want to do it purposefully. Which means like if you move on to like the next screen, you need to make sure that you're not spamming, because otherwise you're just gonna clip through the floor. You need to wait a bit until you're on the track and then spam. All right, so now we're back at the mine. Now we're done with the minecart section. We're gonna get another bandage, or use another bandage, mainly because there's a boss coming up, and it's pretty easy to die on the boss if you're not careful. But thankfully we are. A large roar from that monster. We're going to go over here. We're going to grab the mystery stake, and we're going to grab another bandage. Mainly for one reason, because we want to be safe on this next boss, but for the second reason is if we don't need it, it's going to actually allow us to get a lot more money later on, which of course, the Sawblades, we can use those. And we're going to need a lot of them and after we're done with the mines. And so right here, you want to be careful that you're not spamming through text really quickly, because the tentacle that goes up, sometimes you shoot before it goes up, and so it never comes back down. So like the characters will jump through, but you won't, and so like and then like you have to wait for your character to void out, and it wastes like a full 30 seconds if you like aren't careful there. So right here, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be dealing with the boss of the mines. And so now we're just going to be shooting this boss in its weak spot, of course, being its eye. This one is a finicky boss, mainly because it actually doesn't really matter what like weapon you use. It has a set amount of damage that you use every single time that you shoot it, and so that is a great thing to keep in mind, because if you were to have like Sawblades, or if you were to have like different types of rifles, you can probably do more damage per second with this boss. But usually in this section you really only have shotguns disposable to you, unless you like really went out of your way to grab rifle rounds in the early game, which we don't have time for. And so you can see this boss has two different types of attacks. The first type of attack with this orb attack, where he shoots all these yellow orbs at us. The second type of attack was the bee attack we saw. They're pretty easy to dodge, however, and so and especially if you have a lot of health, you don't really have to deal with them. You have full health, you don't have to like worry too much about it. But the bees especially were like easy to dodge, and the orbs were pretty simple to deal with as well. But now we're officially out of prison. That's a full prison break split, and we're just going to be going back to Allendale after this section, because we want more. We want to have more Sawblades, and we're actually going to be skipping a lot of stuff with the Sawblades right after we get back to Allendale. So Eli is going to say, well, come visit me in Orwell, that's where I'm going to go. And of course, Claire also goes back to Allendale. And they both have stuff that you can interact with that we do in Hearts. Missions that we go to if we want to get more stuff. And more Hearts, of course. So yeah, we're going to go back down. Now is probably another really good time for donations, because it's like a nice transitional phase between like two major areas and two major glitches and boss fights that we're going to be doing. And so that's something that's worth noting. And now we're going to go through here. This priest, before the time jump, he was just a simple priest, but now he's a priest that kills demons with the holy pellets, like so. Or the holy shells, I should say, the holy shotgun shells. But we don't need those in this run. But maybe if you want all hearts, we would get a nice preview of the holy shells there. And so now we're just going to go straight from Basecamp over to Allendale. You can see we're saving a pretty significant amount of time on average right here. And we're going to be getting a lot of nice golds later. So right here, we're going to go to Allendale again, just go straight back up to the shop and sell everything that we have. And we're going to get a lot of money because, remember, we mined the crude earlier. It came at the price of a man's life, but, you know, it's for the greater good. Speed. And so we're going to go here, go to Bill, and sell everything that we have. The mystery stake, the bandage, and both of the crew charts. And now we have a lot of Sawblades. We've maxed out on Sawblades, and we still have $206 left. And so that's important to note, primarily because you're going to see a lot of a lot more opportunities to buy Sawblades later in the run, once we're already in this next area. And so this next area that we're going to go into is called the processing plant. Typically, you'd have to watch a lot of cutscenes and do a lot of dialogue interactions to get through here, but instead we can just use Sawblades and clip through like that. And we use around, again, 20 or so Sawblades. Every time you want to do a Sawblade clip or glitch, it typically requires around 20. And so we reserved 20 there, and we're going to be reserving 20 for another skip that we're going to be doing. But before that, we're going to go to another pretty interesting section known as the train sequence. The train sequence has a lot of combat on it and a lot of really cool movement. And theoretically, you could also use more Sawblades to gain more speed if you're really cool with that. But typically, it's really difficult to do. Because there's a lot of obstacles in your way, and a lot of stuff might just slow you down. And so the safer and usually more efficient way is to go through it with your Gunbrella and fighting any enemies that you need to along the way. So we're just going to kill that sorcerer immediately, and you can see that all these guys are mining crude. That's what's going to be on this section right here. We're going to be jumping into that guy 4 times before going out of the way. We're going to ignore that sorcerer, although you typically don't want to ignore the sorcerers. They're usually the people that inconvenience you the most due to their homing attacks. And now we're going to be jumping up and going through here. And thankfully, at the beginning of every screen, there's another checkpoint. And so if you die, it's not like the end of the world. It's a significant time loss, unfortunately, but like it's something that you just have to deal with. And right there is another example of why you don't want to skip the sorcerers, because the sorcerers kill you and they can shoot you from off screen, which is a really annoying part of the run. But thankfully, we can just go across here after killing this sorcerer. We're going to be going straight to the final part of the train section, which is the fight with Mama. Now, there is a quick kill here, and so see if we can get it. All right, that's the quick kill. That's it. That's the whole fight. And so in reality, the game doesn't let you fight Mama. It would have been a cool fight in theory, but thankfully we don't have to fight her. And now we're back in the processing plant. And so we're going to deal with all these robots in the processing plant. The processing plant is a really interesting part of the run because we actually skip the majority of it. And if you played this game before, you actually realize, wait, how can you skip the processing plant? There's like a lot of different like sections that the game kind of requires you to do. Well, the game requires you to do them casually, but we skip most of them, and they do have lasting effects on the rest of the level. And so we're going to be killing these enemies because the majority of the areas in the processing plant are actually areas which you have to kill all the enemies before you can move on. And we're going to make it a point to really kill all the enemies that we can along the way, because we want the rifle rounds and we want money. And we're going to do another Sawblade clip right here. Instead of going up and activating all these conveyor belts that the game wants us to, we're going to be just clipping through here and going into the next room. What we just skipped was turning on the conveyor belts, and you can see that none of them are going to work for like the rest of the rest of the processing plant. We're going to sell all the rifle rounds that we can to really stack up on money, and we're going to buy Sawblades. We're going to max out on beautiful, and we're going to not clip, we're just going to fly up with the Sawblades. We only use around 8 or 10 of them, and throughout the rest of the processing plant, not only are we going to be like kind of like stacking up on Sawblades, but we're also going to be trying to get as much money and as much spoils from these enemies as we can, because the enemies in this particular boss fight, or this particular part of the run, are actually really useful for the next 3 boss fights that we're going to be doing. And so we're going to be doing pretty small part here, and you can see all of like the chains that have these like hooks on them. They're meant to be moving around, like that's how you're supposed to do this casually, but instead we skip the area that turned that part of the processing plant on, and so we can thankfully just get through the rest of this area without like needing to do that. We're gonna do a small little skip here that allows us to get enough height to get through the rest of this area. We're going to kill this guy because we want the spoils of his flamethrower fuel. We get introduced to 2 more enemies, the enemies with the sticky bombs and enemies with the flamethrower fuels. And so we want both of those things for bosses later in the run. And so even in this room, thankfully it works out a lot better because killing all these enemies is required. This is a game, this is a room where the game requires you to kill all the enemies. Unfortunately, we got hit by that guy's sticky bomb, but we're just going to move on, and we're going to kill these guys as well. Another room where the game will require you to kill the enemies. The only part of the run where we actually do turn on something is the hydraulic presses. And so that's convenient for us, because otherwise we'd have to do theoretically like a bunch of clips through, and so like it's just much easier and much faster and much more possible to do it if you just turn on the hydraulic presses. And so again, killing all the enemies here. Thankfully they're pretty generous with drops, especially the flamethrower fuel guys, and so we want a lot of those for later. And we got coil, thankfully, from one of the machines, which sells for a lot, which is really useful. More hydraulic. You can see like all of this is kind of required to turn on the hydraulic presses, but thankfully, since we aren't using the conveyor belts, none of the none of the later obstacles in the game actually come to fruition, including anything with the conveyor belts or hooks. And so we just have to deal with the hydraulic presses, and they're really not even that bad. We're going to be killing this guy here, getting his flamethrower fuel, and being very careful with the rest of this section, because if you fall in the acid, you're also going to be pretty much sent back to the beginning of the room. It's a pretty hefty time loss if you die in any particular section, or even if you just void out in any particular section. And so going to be coming through here, going up, and we're in pretty much the home stretch of the processing plant already, where we're going to jump up here and kill this final guy just so we can get his flamethrower fuel. And we have a few more enemies that we're going to be dealing with. We're going to get a lot of money from that guy, which is really thankful, because we need more Sawblades later. And there's sticky bombs as well. And now that we're here, we're just going to be grabbing a label, because the entire purpose of going through the processing plant was to find a shipping label, because we're going to be hiding in a container and going to Avalon, which is the final area of the game. And so we're going to be pretty risky and not save, but of course I'll probably save during the marathon here, just for safety. And we're going to be using Sawblades to go our way through this boss. And so usually this boss, before we fight the police officer, we have to go through this boss, the hole puncher. But instead we can just use Sawblades to get through, and the game will restore our health. We're going to switch over to the flamethrower fuel before we go to this boss, because this boss, one of the police officers, is actually really, really quick to kill with flamethrower fuel. And so it's one of its biggest weaknesses. And so we're gonna spit through this small cutscene where it's showing us all of Avalon we see in the background. But before we even get to Avalon, we already fight him. And so instead we're just gonna be, you can see how look at that instant kill right there, and that's all with the flamethrower fuel instantly. And so that's that's a really satisfying thing to do quickly. And you want to really grab have the boss in your grasp by manipulating its movements a little bit, so that it stays in one place as much as you can. And if you don't do that, it's still pretty quick kill, but it can get finicky if you're not quick with the boss manipulation. And so now we're gonna go back to Allendale for the third time. This is the last time we're gonna be here in Allendale, because we've just finished the boss and we've gotten the shipping label at the processing plant. So now all we need to do is talk to Marl. Marl is a character that the game thinks we've interacted with at this point, but we haven't, because we've skipped all the interactions. We're going to sell the majority of the things in our possession, primarily because we want to buy, as you guessed it, Sawblades. We're just going to max out on them, even though we don't really need that many. It's just easier to max out on it, so you don't have to think. We're going to go to Avalon. Marl's going to offer us to go to Avalon. And this is the last part of the game where we're going to have a significant amount of time for donations, because we do need to sit through a small amount of cutscene before getting back into the real gameplay of Avalon. And so in Avalon, we're going to be dealing with 2 major bosses and a really big skip as well. But first, right here, we're just going to be going into the shipping container with the shipping label that we put on, and so that'll allow us to sneak into Avalon through the shipping ship, I suppose. Yeah. And now we're going to go sit through this small cutscene. This is actually one of the few cutscenes where you don't have to spam through text. You can just wait for this cutscene to finish, so it's a nice relaxing break on the hands, thankfully. And so it's nice to deal with. And so now after this cutscene, we're back in Avalon. And so the lore update here is that Avalon is this utopian place that we have been going to, and that Max has offered as a sanctuary for people. But of course it's a corrupt sanctuary, and so you don't really believe Max anything that he says. You're just here to avenge your wife and rescue your daughter. And so now we're here in Avalon. We're here with one of the guys who was working with the shipping company, and he's just please don't shoot me, and please put the gun down. So for the next minute or two, we're going to be walking around without our Gunbrella, but we do have our climbing gear, so we're not like completely out of commission. We just can't use our Gunbrella for a bit, and we're going to be doing in a part of the run that it's a little a bit of a break from the high octane gameplay that we're used to, but it's still a pretty important part of the run, especially because you don't want your brain to go on autopilot. This is an easy part of the run where your brain can go on autopilot. I've done it before, I have, but thankfully we get major goals at the end here, so that we can easily get to the PB that we did for 57:45. And so we're gonna deal with these two brothers right here that are having an argument. There's supposed to be this ritual tonight that this man is asking if everyone's going to go to, and some people have conflicting feelings about it. But of course, we know that that ritual is pretty corrupt because Max is the one that's running it. And so we're gonna jump over here, and we're just jumping for fun. Like, jumping doesn't really have that much of an effect on your movement. It doesn't make you go faster or anything like that, but it's fun to do. So we're gonna talk to one of the brothers that'll ask us to talk to another brother. He's just like, can you talk some sense into him? And so we try to go do that because we want this brother, who is who works at the laboratories underneath the Avalon hotels, to give us his staff key so we can access the laboratories. And so finally we're going to go back here and talk to his brother again, so that we can go straight towards another cutscene where we're going to get the key, and that key can allow us to go immediately back into the first boss fight of Avalon. And the first boss fight of Avalon is actually going to be that one police officer that we saw earlier in the game. The other police officer, like the big burly one, not the one that we just killed. So going through here, and another thing about Avalon's like the only area that like loops all the way around for some reason. I'm not totally sure why, but we're just going to be going through here and skipping through another small cutscene, and then we can go towards the boss area. All right. So we're really in the home stretch of the run. There's only 7 minutes left, and the majority of that is going to be with combat and one major glitch. And so now we have quest updated, the Mask of Red Death. We've gotten the card, the ID that will allow us to access the laboratories. So we're going to go back into the hotel. Make sure that we don't spam through text too much, because again, another section that we go through on autopilot, we can make a really big and dumb mistake. And so we're going to go through here, access granted, and we're going to go down to the lab. Perfect. And we're going to talk to a few scientists here, and that'll lead us to the final room of the laboratory. But really it's a trap. The trap is going to lead us to the other police officer, who is going to try and kill us. And you could save there, typically if you don't have like a lot of health for whatever reason, like if you took a lot of damage in the processing plant, and you like don't trust that you're going to be like safe in this boss fight, you can always save there to get more health. But if you don't, you can just keep moving, because the game actually automatically saves right here, so you can just move on. And so this boss fight, before we do that, he's gonna do a monologue about like the sanctity of Avalon and like the mission that they're doing, and a lot of stuff that just try to justify really, really horrible actions and corruption in their society. But all you want to do is try to get to your daughter. And so the lights come up, and we realize you're kind of like doing experiments on babies and stuff like that. It's a wild plot. There's cults, there's like corruption, there's experiments on babies, or like a whole spiritual aspect to it. It's wild. And so now that this monologue is mostly over, we're gonna go into the real boss fight. And so this boss fight, it actually works in a very mechanical way. And so this boss has 3 main attacks, and the attacks actually differ depending on how far away you are from the boss. And so we're going to do a specific boss manipulation that allows us to do his second attack, which if you're like not up close to him, he'll do an attack like that. But if you're up close to him, he'll do an attack like that. But if you're far away from him, he's going to keep doing this attack over and over again, where he shoots a lot of bullets out of his Gunbrella, and you can immediately reflect all those bullets back to him and chip away a lot at his health because of it. And this is objectively the fastest way to kill him. So if you just keep doing this, and you keep doing the perfect boss manipulations, you're able to kill him pretty quickly. But again, you don't want to be too close to him because then he's just doing his short attack. But you don't want to be too far away from him because then he'll do his long attack. And if he does his long attack, that actually drops bombs from the ceiling, and it's a really annoying attack to deal with. You're probably gonna like mess up and have a lot of damage, especially because he moves around a lot. But thankfully, in this PD, we pretty much had a perfect boss fight, except for like that very first one. We were too close to him, but even then it's pretty easy to recover from. You'd rather be too close and too far away. One of those attacks is much easier to recover from than the other. But now we have killed this first boss, and before we get into the final boss of the game, we're going to go through a lot of enemies. These enemies are fast-paced, and other like cops of Avalon here. We're going to wait for this guy to for the green liquid to pour out before we can move on. We're gonna have to fight both of these guys. They are both enemies that have umbrellas, so we need to be very careful with them. As you can see, we're gonna go grab that sticky bomb, because those enemies can drop pretty much any kind of weapon, including Sawblades, sticky bombs, flamethrower fuels, anything that you really need at this point. And now all the Sawblades that we use, we're going to be skipping the elevator sequence with them right here by doing the same thing we've always done, just clipping through the wall and racking up that speed. And now we're going to be going through here, and this is the home stretch. Just a few more combat sequences, and we're going to go straight into the final boss. And so we're going to mainly skip the majority of these like interactions because they're slow and we don't need them. We're going to be going out of our way to grab these rifle rounds, and we're going to be very careful and save right here just because we're a bit low on health. And also sleeping in a bed allows us to get extra hearts, and so that's going to be pretty useful for the final boss, and I'll be doing that during the run as well, just for safety reasons. And we're going to be grabbing one grenade. We're going to be grabbing another grenade right here. We're going to go into the final boss with a total of 3 grenades, because this is a boss that will adjust damage based on what weapon you use, and so like the grenades just do a lot of damage. And so now we're here. We're in the final showdown with Max. Max is here with our daughter. He's kind of like been raising her this whole time because she hasn't known us as a father, even though we're her father. And so that's a really nice standoff here. And Max is like really cocky. He's just like, "What are you gonna do? Are you gonna shoot me in front of your daughter?" Spoiler alert: we're gonna shoot him in front of our daughter. And so that's exactly what we're gonna be doing right here. Boom. And then Max limps away as our daughter goes and tries to take care of him. We're going to grab one more grenade right here. It'll come towards us as we're walking away. And we're going to be really quick on the kill with Max here. It's going to be really quick, especially because we have grenades. And we also stocked up on a lot of sticky bombs when we first went through the processing plant. There was a reason that we were stocking up on them, and the reason has come right now. And so now we are going to just let Max die. Like, he does die right here. He collapses on the floor, but then he gets possessed by another demon starting right now. Like, you can see all the Wraiths and the demons are going to be starting possessing him, and so he's going to turn into this monstrous identity. And a lot of people, of course, call him Max. You can see the my split is named Daddy because, you know, the first one was Baby, the second one was Mama. There was also another one named Uncle. And so now we're going to do Daddy because he even says the line right here. Come to Daddy right there. And so we're going to shoot 3 grenades at him right here. And right after the 3 grenades, we're going to be using the sticky bombs. And we're just going to be... All right, recording space ran out. We love to see it. Anyway, we're gonna shoot the sticky bombs at him. We are gonna keep doing all that, and we repeatedly shoot a sticky bomb at him. They won't explode until we hit right click right here. And as soon as we do that, all of them are gonna explode at once. For one sticky bomb short, we're gonna shoot another at him and then explode him. And as you can see, they all do a lot of damage, and that's time right there. And so that's pretty much it for Gunbrella any percent. The unfortunate reality is after we've killed Max here, we do die ourselves. Our daughter is saved, but we do see a little bit of a spirit of our long lost wife there at the beginning of this animation. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Gunbrella any percent. It's a really interesting run. I highly recommend like checking it out because it's just like and involving in the marathon, because it fits perfectly in one of the slots, and it's something that I think really deserves a spotlight for audiences and for new people to come into this game alike. It was a huge sponsor at SGDQ, and so I think it's just going to fit in perfectly with this with this marathon as well, considering that fact. And so I highly recommend checking it out, and I'm really hoping that I put on a good show in terms of commentary and also just in terms of gameplay for what you've seen here. It's got a lot of really great glitches, a lot of really great bosses, and have a really nice balance to allow for like donations and still engaging with the audience a lot. And so yeah, I can't recommend this enough, and I hope that you guys see that too. So yeah, thank you so much. My name is Osborne, and this has been Gunbrella any percent. Hope you have a good one.